Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Minh, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides, and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today, we have a repeat speaker, Brendon Woolf. How are you?
Good. How are you? Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me back, Minh. It's great to be back.
Right. It's always good to listen to the journeys of any participants who've taken on the AAT tribunal in their quest for justice and what's right in this NDIS world. And welcome. Now, to our listeners, we had Brendon on about 6 months ago, I think. I'm not too sure how, 8 months ago. Not exactly how far away. But yeah, if anyone wants to listen to the background story of Brendon talking to Erin and our previous episode, please do so. There's a lot of content there. But Brendon, can you give us a 5-minute just summary of the history here?
Yeah. So I applied for SDA back in 2019, and my decision from the NDIA come back as a shared 1 to 3 funding level, an SDA funding level, and my application was wholly and solely about single occupancy. I wanted to live alone, all that jazz.
Brendon, when you say 1 to 3, can you explain to our listeners what 1 to 3 means?
So 1 to 3 shared residence is 3 participants who live in a home with one support worker supporting them throughout the day with their needs, personal care, etc., etc. It also provides an overnight on-site assistance, that's OOA, for people who don't understand what OOA is. So yeah, and my needs and what I was requesting was I wanted to live alone. Because I work from home, I have a very active social life, and I just want people to come and go from my place, whenever I choose, because as we know, the NDIS is about choice and control for the participants. So I wanted to choose how I wanted to live and who I wanted to live with. So the NDIA did not agree with that. So then I had to go through the appeals process. So doing your S100. So for those of you who don't know what an S100 is, it's a review of a reviewable decision. So an independent planner will look at the decision that was made by the original planner, and then they will get based on further evidence that you provide to the agency. They will then review that decision, and they will determine whether you need to go to AAT or not. My review was unsuccessful, so then I did have to go to AAT. Unfortunately, my AAT journey was an extremely long journey. It was about 2.5, nearly 3 years of solid negotiations, and we didn't end up getting to the point where we could work it out in the early stages. I then had to have a hearing. I had the hearing, and then I waited for 6 months for my decision. So my hearing concluded on the 22nd of September last year, and then I got my decision on the 19th of May, so it'll be exactly 8 weeks on Wednesday. I got my decision 8 weeks ago on Wednesday, and the decision I successfully won. So I got the one apartment, one resident SDA that I was originally seeking in the first place.
Wow, that's so, mate, congratulations for that wonderful milestone there. Good work there, mate.
Thank you.
And I know it's been hard. We've all seen you in the press and other events, and you've always expressed how hard and difficult and traumatic it has been for you. Can I ask you, why did the NDIA say no all these times? And firstly, secondly, why did it take 3 years?
Why did it take 3 years? That is a good question that I probably can't even answer. I don't know how many times my report was amended and further evidence. My allied health professionals who did my application, they were literally clutching at, trying to, scrape together all this stuff, and they would just constantly renew. Sorry, what was the other part of your question?
What was their justification in denying you your request? Yeah.
So their justification was that it was unreasonable and unnecessary for me to live independently, and it was about value for money as well. It didn't. The cost would have been extremely high for the NDIA. They even used in evidence in my hearing a sustainability report that, believe it or not, is not public to participants, and it's not public to anybody that's on the NDIS or has or works with the NDIS. It was quite interesting. During my hearing, we spent half a morning trying to argue that actuary report, because it was a classified document, the agency was trying to not even let the tribunal members know what was in that document. And the tribunal came up and said that, well, for us to include it in evidence, we need to know what is in it. So eventually the agency folded and said, well, yeah, you can look at it. But it was a very damning report, and I read through it and I was like, what are they thinking? These people that make these decisions clearly have no experience working with people with disabilities or what they go through on a daily basis. So I was very, very angry by that report. I was very angry at the fact that it was allowed to be included in evidence, and mind you, it was added late into evidence. But I guess the agency was clutching at straws basically to find stuff that they could, say no to. But I'm glad the tribunal saw through that and basically gave me the right decision in the end.
Well, that's good to hear, because, it's shame on them, the agency, for making you go through 3 years of pain and heartache. That's the first thing I want to say. And secondly, you're right. These actuaries, number crunching nerds hidden away in the back office of the NDIA, shame on you, right, for talking about cost cutting and sustainability and all this stuff. And yet, last month, the NDIA doubles or triples the costs of SDA funding.
I know. I saw the price guide and I was like, oh my God, what on earth has happened here? Someone's literally just taken the SDA funding and just gone, we're gonna give money away. I was absolutely the new price guide. I am absolutely gobsmacked at.
Well, we won't go into that yet. Wait. Yeah. We won't go into that too much. Yeah. We'll cover that in about 10 minutes' time.
Yeah.
But all I want to say is, in summary, the way I see it, they've wasted 3 years of your life for nothing, because the outcome that you wanted was what the numbers are now anyway. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it seems like what they've done is all the way through, they've gone, it's going to cost way too much money. But they wasted 3 years of money, of legal fees, trying to stop me from getting what I want. Wouldn't that be more of a waste of money than...
I wonder how much money they spent on lawyers, tribunal fees, the legal process, the mediation, your lawyers, everyone's time, everyone's money, just to fold after 3 years. I mean, how much money was spent, God knows, right? God knows how much they spent fighting you, Brendon Woolf. And at the end of all this, after all the heartache and pain, frustration, stress, all the negative energy that you've had, the toxic and negative energy you've had to go through as a participant trying to get choice and control in your life, that you got what you wanted only after 3 years of pain and fight. You know, it's just shocking, you know, that you had to go through this. But I'm curious to know, Brendon, how many others are in your boat who have been fighting and have either failed or given up or won? Do you have any idea on the numbers out there?
Well, I haven't seen the statistics from the current caseload before the tribunal. My understanding is early in the year that cases before the tribunal, and this is just NDIS in general, there was roughly 2,000 cases still before the tribunal. I know the minister, Mr. Bill Shorten, and if you're listening, hello, announced that the agency was going to introduce a new independent expert review system, and they were going to trial that. It's being trialing currently, but we haven't seen any anecdotal evidence or any outcomes from that trial as yet. I'm yet to see data on that. I would like to see data on that and see what's been happening, but I'd also like to know what the agency plans to do now that the government has announced the abolishment of the AAT, and that's not too far away. That's, sometime next year. They said within 2 years. So what I would like to see, for participants' sake, not just, for anyone's sake, mostly for participants, what does the agency intend to do when it comes to reviewing decisions after your S100? Because the AAT won't be there anymore. And I think participants need to have that stability, and that they need to feel assured that whatever system it is, it's going to be fair and just for everyone. And I'm scared and I'm nervous for participants who are about to go down that path. But what we've seen, though, in the last 12 months, we've seen a little shift within the agency. The agency is starting to, have more of a relaxed thought, you could say, to independent.
Totally agree, Brendon. And I want to remind our listeners a bit of background to what you're saying here. Remember the last 4 or 5 years prior to last year, the Liberal government were the ones in charge of the system.
Yep.
And when Labor, the federal government, the Labor Party took over the federal government in early last year.
Yes, yeah, May last year.
Election, yeah, May last year. Bill Shorten, hashtag Bill Shorten, we love you. He's done a lot of hard work in trying to clean up the mess, the inefficiencies, the red tape of the NDIA to make it more better for participants particularly, and clean up the inefficiencies and the costs and whatnot for the system. So obviously, yes, you're right, the last 12 months have been better than before the previous 12 months. And we hope to see that good old Billy Boy, Bill Shorten, will be doing a lot more changes in the future under his stewardship for participants as it grows and becomes more appealing for the participants of Australia. Now, obviously, the numbers are showing that right now, I think we've just hit the 600,000 mark of participants in the NDIS only about 2 months ago. And the forecast is that by 2032, which is only 9 years away, we're going to see the numbers hit 1 million in the NDIS, right? That's 1 million people.
Yeah.
Now, at the moment of this 600,000 people, Brendon, half of them are under 18 years of age, okay? Which means in time, those numbers will become, obviously as children, they've got their parents to support them and live off. But as they become young adults, they'll have more dependency on the system and emotionally, financially, and physically, I guess, by way of allied health professionals and all those other people who are part of the process in delivering care and support to participants. So we definitely see a lot more changes to come in the future, Brendon, for sure, with the Labor government.
But I do agree with one thing the minister has said, that the NDIS shouldn't be considered a lifeboat. And I think the other states and territories, around Australia, have a responsibility to people with a disability, especially children in schools, that if they can fund something within the state system, they should be able to fund it, and they shouldn't have to rely on the NDIS. Like, you shouldn't hear people say, oh, that's an NDIS problem, that should be dealt with the NDIS. Not true. States have a responsibility. They signed up to the agreement that they would fund, some of it. But I think they have a bigger part to play here.
Yeah, totally agree. So listen, moving on from the AAT position. And by the way, I want to say a shout out to Adapt Housing. I mean, they're the ones who took you into the... Yes, let's talk about them for a second. Yeah. So how they helped you, Brendon? Yeah.
Adapt Housing. I could not thank David Whitelaw and his team enough for everything that they have done for me over the past 3 years. They have been truly amazing. Dave has been a rock, and he is my mentor, and he's taught me so much about SDA. Not only that, I've learnt through the AAT as well, but I said to him, eventually I'm going to be taking his job as the CEO of Adapt. But he is a fine example, someone who has worked in the disability sector for many, many years. He knows it, he gets it, he understands it, and he does everything he can to ensure participants achieve their ultimate goals, and in terms of home and living. And I am so thankful for that, for him and his amazing team at Adapt Housing.
He I totally agree. He's a wonderful human being. I've met him many times, and I had a podcast with him last week and lunch, and he spoke very highly of you as well, Brendon, for sure. But yeah, I mean, just to give a bit of background here on this topic, you did not have SDA funding, not at all. They allowed you to get one of their apartments to live in.
No, I had.
No.
I had the.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right.
I
yeah,
had
1 to 3. Yeah, 1 to 3 funding.
1 to 3, and then Dave was like, "We'll support you, and we'll help. We'll get you in contact with Greg Barry at SDA Services." Mind you, is another awesome gentleman too, and his team. And then so they allowed me to stay on my current level, my old level of funding, up until I got my new level of funding. I'm very thankful for that. I'm grateful and thankful for the forever home that I do have, and knowing that I've got this new level of funding now for the rest of my life. It's kind of, that part is the surreal part. Like, I could go anywhere now in Australia, any apartment, and not have to worry too much of whether my home is going to be accessible.
Yeah, just so our listeners can hear and understand, once your funding is approved at NDIS, they can't reverse it.
That's correct.
Yeah. So my last question is, on this topic, did you ever live in a home with 3 other people or 2 other people, ever?
No, I did live. No, I never. I've always lived in a family home with mum and dad and my sister. And just like every other person, I wanted to move out of home. My mates were doing it. The only thing is I got to do it much later on in life because back, I'm part of the old school generation where I was sort of a pioneer through a lot of new phases. Like even at school, there wasn't people with disabilities were, it was very rare, but it was starting to happen, and it was slowly happening. And I had to fight, then just to get access to classrooms. But what we've seen now is it's law that every classroom must be, wheelchair accessible. So I've seen the disability sector change and grow for the last 30 years, and it's been tough because I've always been part of that pioneer stage of programs. And the same sort of thing with NDIS and SDA. SDA was, it was still a baby when I first applied. Planners and delegates didn't know much about it. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of decisions, not just mine, planners and delegates didn't understand the legislation and they didn't know how to interpret it. Because let's face it, the NDIS Act itself is so open to interpretation. I'm glad we have a review this year, and I'm glad that, the legislation is finally going to be ironed out. And I think further training for planners and delegates need to be looked at. So situations like mine don't happen to, future participants who are looking at home and living decisions.
Gotcha. Brendon, my question is this. I hope you don't mind me asking this question.
Yep.
And this is to relate your story back so we understand a person's story. How old are you?
I am 38 years old. So I only moved home when I was 35, 36.
Gotcha. Okay. So let me bring this back to layman's terms for our listeners to understand, right? But like you said, you started later in life. You're more of a pioneer because, you're a little bit older and things and whatnot. But the biggest problem out there in the disability communities out there is a lot of parents who have older children or any children, I would say, who is disabled and dependent upon supports. They're probably wondering when we get old as parents and we retire and we pass away, who will look after our children, our child who is disabled? You're 38 now, so you finally moved out of home at 35, as you say. Most people move out of home when they're 21 and live on their own. So you finally got the decision you want to live the way you want, as you say, choice control, as everyone says in the NDIS, to be independent and live happily ever after in your forever home. And no matter where you go, your funding will follow you. And that is what you appreciate most with this outcome, although it's taken 3 years, I know, but it's a happy ending. And you get to now not have to worry about this issue in your life and worry about more things, which are where will you work, who your friends will be, where will you live your life. That's you have a wonderful life ahead of you, Brendon, and you've been through so much in the last few years, and I really hope that your life becomes better and better moving forward from here. I really do. Now, big changes in the NDIS being the SDA pricing review, which which is effective as of the 1st of July 2023. What is your opinion from a participant's perspective as to these changes?
All I can say is a wow. Absolute wow. It is a huge game changer. People with IL, big winners there. HPS, now this is something that I kind of, having a look through, and then I double-checked and I triple-checked. So my new level of funding that I have now means that I can actually live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. Even though I have a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, but my funding allows me now to have...
Can I ask you a question? Brendon, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you were on 1 to 3 shared funding,
yes,
how much was that dollar value back then?
So that dollar value was at 38,000. So my new level of SDA is roughly 94 to 95,000. I don't know the exact figure, but it's
sure.
94 and 95,000.
Now, that 95,000 plus RRC, is that right?
Yes, reasonable rent.
Which is about, which is about 104,000. In the AAT process, did the NDIA ever argue 1 bed, 1 bath apartment versus 2 bed, 1 bath? Was that ever a big discussion at all?
No, that's the thing. It never was a discussion. My legal team, Red Lake Holding, Jonathan Mills, another amazing gentleman, we tried to test the theory that because I work from home and I have a lot of confidential meetings with participants and whatnot, that I would need an office, a separate bedroom for my office, because I do have support workers coming and going at different times, and those times that I'm having those confidential meetings, I like to be able to like sort of lock myself away so that nobody. So we tried to test that 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom theory, but the agency didn't really. They weren't keen on even entertaining that idea, and they just sort of stuck to the no, we want you to live in a group home type situation. But it's really weird now that the price guide allows me to do that now. And that's the strange thing. The agency has gone completely about face and thrown money at SDA. And I'm like, why are they fighting? Why is the agency fighting us so much? I mean, we only have, last time I checked, it was only 26,000 participants with SDA in their plans. And I'm like, why are they fighting this? Like, it's a no-brainer. And when I read the new price guide, because that's what we're talking about here, I was like, finally, they actually get it. But there's one category that I do feel for the most, and that's robust. I do not understand how a robust SDA can house 2 residents with clients who have complex behavioural needs. It is a recipe for disaster. Participants could get hurt here, and I think we need to advocate more strongly to the agency, going, you need to relook at this again and go, people with complex behaviours need to live by themselves. It's a safety issue to other participants and to their carers.
I totally agree. Brendon, what do you see being the impact in the SDA product or dwellings being created moving forwards because of these new SDA price guide?
Okay. You and I did a speaking engagement here in Logan about nearly 6 months ago, and a bit longer than that actually. And I remember you saying that here we have a massive oversupply of HPS, which is true, we do. Now the price guide reflects the fact that we do have that oversupply. So what I'm seeing in the future is builders and developers are going to concentrate less on HPS and more on house the 2 resident housing developments. That's a no-brainer there. But again, we need to get participants on SDA. Because in Logan, there's only 2% of NDIS participants currently having SDA, and I'm only one of those 2%. I think Dave from ADAPT said that I would probably be the highest funded SDA participant in Southeast Queensland at the moment on my new level of funding. So I think what we need to do from here is so the SDA market stays profitable. Well, I don't like to use that word profitable because you shouldn't be profiting off people with disabilities. It's, to me, that's just wrong. We need to see the markets more. We need people to invest more in it, and we need people to invest more in the areas that lack the categories. So like robust and like improved livability and the housing. I know robust is a challenge because robust have their own separate they have other requirements that require, because of the nature of the participants living in those developments. So I think we need to be very careful in what we build in the future in terms of we need less of HPS, but we need more of robust and the improved livability SDAs.
Yes, totally agree. At the moment, I think there's about 3,500 to almost 4,000 dwellings in Australia that are SDA built. These are brand new builds.
And the one thing that the new price guide allows for is something that SDA providers have to come to terms with, and that's being more flexible with people's SDA funding. Because now you could have an improved livability participant and a HPS participant living in the one property under the new price guide. So I think it's about having that flexibility and that maneuver space so participants can, live comfortably and
Thank you for those comments, Brendon. I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think we're going to see a lot more appreciation for these changes moving forwards as the community, the investor community and the development community applies their well-experienced knowledge in development and construction to build products specifically for these categories you mentioned, robust and improved ability for the participants. There's a big demand for that to occur out there.
I think, too, we need to start looking at participants who don't have SDA, who are because as you know, we have a national housing crisis just in general. I think people, and this is something that the states could start taking more responsibility on, is those who don't have NDIS and who do have, just needs of people with disabilities. I think we do need to acknowledge that housing does need to be available for people with disabilities outside of the NDIS, because SDA is not available for everybody. We know that. They never deemed it to be available for everybody. Originally, it was only meant to be 7% of NDIS participants eligible for SDA. I don't know what it is now, but that was the original thing. But we do need to acknowledge that people with disabilities who aren't on NDIS, they need to be looked after as well, especially in this national housing crisis. And we need to, keep pushing hard to get people out of hospital into appropriate accommodation too. That's a main, that's another big thing that the minister was trying to get the numbers down so it stops the bed block happening in the hospital. So we need to focus on there. But I see a very bright future for SDA. I see a lot more participants under the new price guide going, I think I would like to apply now for SDA. Because if you'd asked me, after what I'd gone through over the last 3 years, if you'd had asked me now, would I do it all over again? I would probably say no. Under the old.
Yeah, it certainly makes it easier now to apply, to get a better outcome these days for sure. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Brendon, any final words of advice from you to any participant or participant families or people who are either considered stakeholders? Advice from you as a participant who is now seeing the future, being a bit more brighter. What are your words of advice to them listening here on you?
The biggest piece of advice that I've got, and this is to parents of people with disabilities, especially children who are thinking about leaving school and and wanting to move out of home. SDA, parents can be a little bit like, is my son going to be cared for properly, or daughter will be cared for properly? Is it going to be safe? Is it going to be secure? A lot of them look at that and go, no, I don't want to apply. But I think as the population ages and, we have the NDIS for those available, I think parents need to be a bit more open-minded and be like, okay, let's give them the opportunity that they want to. Let's try this. Let's see where it goes. For participants who have, who are maybe like, thinking about their home and living situation, SDA now, we all know it. We all breathe it. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. I love it. SDA is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I never thought I would actually ever leave home, but I did. Even though it was a rough, long journey, the decision that I've got framed on my lounge room wall above my computer, I look at that now and I go, I am so glad that I did that, and I am so thankful that I've had the opportunity that I've got to do that. And and now I advocate for participants who are wanting SDA in their plans. I want to work more in the SDA space. I just want to share my knowledge and my experiences and help those who don't fully understand it.
Wonderful words, Brendon. I think anyone listening to this episode will really appreciate and hear the passion and commitment you have for this space. We really see it, and hopefully, mate, if you want to talk more business with us offline and see how you can work with us and help us with our networks as well, we'd love to get you involved in what we do as well.
I'd love to be able to help.
Yeah. And anyone else listening out there around Australia who is in the SDA space or wants to get involved in the SDA space, just reach out to us and we'll connect you to Brendon to hear his story and talk about how they can benefit in being part of this sector as well, the SDA community. Yeah. Brendon, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you at the networking event in a few weeks' time. We're doing a big, massive event with about 140 people, mostly partners coming along to network and share their experiences. And we, as in our organisation here, Ndis Prop Australia, with Tanya Gomez Consulting, are co-hosting the event to give back to the community and thank those who are working so hard to make people like you, your lives better. Brendon, we hope to see you there. I hope to also see you at the private film day that we're doing with Tanya Gomez as well. And see you contribute to that film section there for her online social media marketing there or with her videos. But if you also, we're also going to the SDA conference. Are you going to that at all yourself?
I've read about it, but I haven't. Where is that?
Come along as my guest.
Okay, where
is that?
Where is that?
It's the next day after the bowling event day.
Oh, whereabouts is that?
South Bank in the Emporium Hotel.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I will definitely be there.
It's a full day of SDA, like 10 speakers and all the stuff that you know and you understand. It'll be great for you to come along as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. And to all the listeners, once again, if you're thinking about SDA, please apply. It's worth it.
Yeah, cool. Brendon, thank you so much for your time, mate. We'll see you soon. Very soon.
Thank you, Minh. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.